Hi, my name is Hoanglong, and the subject of my presentation is the art of listening. I like to begin with a quote. It says, "Hearing is through the ears, but listening is through the mind." What I really like this about this quote is that it shows you the difference between hearing and listening, but I'll get into a little more of that later. They say listening is an art, but listening is also an acquired skill. It requires our mind to be active. The definition of listening is something that's done consciously and involves analysis and understanding of the sounds you hear. Before I get into the difference between hearing and listening, I would like to ask you a question. Where do you rate yourself as a listener? On a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being the worst listener and 10 being the best listener. Personally, I rate myself a 6. I know I'm not the best listener, but I do quite frequent pay attention to what the speaker is saying. So they conducted a poll about this, and the average response was a 5. So we can conclude that not a lot of people consider themselves to be good listeners. Going back to the difference between listening and hearing, hearing is more of an accidental process. It's involuntary and effortless. Let's say you're at a party with music and there's 20 people around you. All those sounds, they're going through your ear involuntarily. You have no control of all these sounds that are coming at you. However, when you're listening, you're focused on one thing and it's voluntary. It's intentional. You're staying on track of what the speaker's saying. Listening is so important because it's the way we acquire knowledge and receive information. It's key to effective communication. We spend 50 to 80% of our conscious life communicating. And on top of that, half of the time we spend communicating, we spend listening. Specifically, looking at listening in the business world, business people such as a salesman or a negotiator, they have to learn the skill of listening. Therefore, they also understand the value of silence. When they're making deals or making sales, they usually are the last to speak. They take in all the information before coming up with a response. That way, they make more sales and better deals. You can also have slip ups in communication, and those slip ups can lead to major repercussions. Possibly, you may have said something to offend someone, but you aren't sure what you said. And because listening is such an essential skill for communicating, I would like to give you tips for effective listening. Tip number one, avoid judging the speaker too soon. We're hung up on this idea of first impressions. We judge what a person's wearing or how a person looks like, but we should think of the speaker's message instead. Tip number two, pay attention to the speaker's body language. By looking at their body language, we can understand the speaker's attitudes and motives. Possibly they're trying to persuade us or inform us. We should also keep an eye out for their tone of voice, hand gestures, and facial expressions. While researching body language, I came across this picture showing the 27 body language tricks. And this is important in the business world because it shows you what you should do or how you should act. Particularly, let's say you're in a meeting and you should always try to sit up straight. Or after negotiating a deal, you should go for a handshake to end the deal. On to tip number three: do not fake attention. We have to maintain genuine interest in what the speaker is trying to say. And by providing genuine interest, we should give the speaker occasional comments, such as a yes, to let them know that you're still listening to them. And tip number four: resist from dominating a conversation. We know people who try to steer a conversation their way, but we should wait to be the last person to speak. And by being the last person to speak, we can allow the speaker to present all their ideas before we give them an intelligent response. And in conclusion, uh, listening is an essential skill that we will use for the rest of our lives, if it's in the business world or the social world. We will use it because it's a part of effective communication. And since I've given you these tips, I want you to apply these tips for the next time you go listen to a speaker. Thank you.